We're going to do lesson 2.4b today, and the last one we did was on polynomial division, and we did long division, which, as you know, takes a long time. Today we're going to kind of do a shortcut. We're going to do synthetic division, and this should not be new to you because you did do this last year in Algebra 2. We're going to make it a little bit harder this year, though. So, well, let's just start with a very basic problem. Okay, number 1. We're going to divide this polynomial 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 5x minus 12. We're going to divide that by x minus 3. Okay, synthetic division, we're going to kind of do the opposite of things. We're going to take x minus 3 and we're going to use 3 from that, and we're going to turn our long division sign upside down. We're going to write all the coefficients in order, 3, 2, 1, 0, so 2, negative 3, negative 5, negative 12. And you start by bringing down the 2, and then you multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. And with synthetic division, we add the columns. Negative 3 plus 6 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Add and get 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Add and you get 0. Now that is your remainder right there. And we got a remainder of 0. This is going to be your constant term, the 4 is. 3 is linear, and 2 is quadratic. So what we did was we took a linear term, a linear binomial, and we divided it into a cubic, and we got out a quadratic. So we get 2x squared plus 3x plus 4, and that would be your answer by dividing. We could have gotten that with long division also. Now, what that tells us is a few things. First of all, if I let this polynomial equal p of x, it tells us that p of 3 equals 0. It also tells us that x minus 3 is a factor of p of x. It tells us that x equals 3 is an x-intercept on the graph of that polynomial. It tells us all kinds of cool stuff. All right, so let's do another one. Number 2. And let's take x cubed minus 3x squared plus 1, and we're going to divide that by x plus 1. So we're going to take negative 1 on the outside, and we're going to use our coefficients, and I have 1x cubed, negative 3x squared. Now I'm missing a linear term, so I need to fill that in with a 0, and then 1. So start by bringing down the 1, and then multiply. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Add the column to get negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Add 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Add those, you get negative 3. So this time I ended up with a remainder, and here's how we want to write our answer. We have x squared minus 4x plus 4 minus 3 over x plus 1, and x cannot equal negative 1. That would be the complete answer for that. Okay, so those are basic problems that you did last year, and then we're now going to talk more about the zeros of a polynomial and how we can find them. So we have something called the rational zero theorem, and this helps us eliminate zeros, possible zeros. It helps us narrow it down to what the possible real zeros are. So the possible real zeros of a polynomial are p divided by q, and where p is going to be the factors of the constant of the polynomial, factors of the constant, and q are the factors of the leading coefficient. Okay, now this won't tell you if they are zeros for sure, but it does tell you that they could be possible zeros. So it rules out a whole bunch of zeros of your polynomial. So let's try one. Number 3. We're just going to list the possible zeros, using the rational zero theorem. So we have f of x equals 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 5x minus 12. Okay, so our possible zeros are going to be the factors of negative 12 over the factors of 2. So that's our constant term on the end, and then that's our leading coefficient. So let's go ahead and write down all the factors of 12. So the factors of 12 would be plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And then the factors of 2 would be plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2. So if we had to list all of these, we would have to do 1 over 1, and then 1 over 2, and 2 over 2, and 3 over 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, you have to list them all. I don't mind you leaving them like this because you can see what they could be. And if I ask you a question like this, is 3 a possible zero of that polynomial? Is 3 a possible zero? Then you would look, oh, I have 3 over 1, so yes, it is. I could ask you something like, is, I don't know, 7 a possible zero? 7 a possible zero? And you would look up here to your factors and you'd say, no, there's no 7. 7 is not a possible zero. So what this does is it limits it to, still a lot of possible zeros, but we can throw out a bunch too. Okay, so let's do one more. And you're probably thinking, like, what's the point of all this? Why do we even care what the zeros are? Well, the zeros are going to help us graph the polynomial. And if we know the zeros, then we know the x-intercepts. And a lot of times you don't get your calculator on a test or quiz, and so you have to do it by hand, and synthetic division is a really good way to do it by hand. So let's do this one, and you'll see on this one. So f of x equals 2x to the 4th minus 7x cubed minus 8x squared plus 14x plus 8. Okay, that's a really big polynomial there. So we're going to do a bunch of things. We are going to list all the possible zeros, okay? Then I'm going to tell you a couple of zeros that do work, and then we're going to do some things after that. So let's start with this part. List all the possible zeros. So we're going to take our factors of 8 and divide it by our factors of 2. So plus or minus 1, 2, 4, and 8, and divide that by plus or minus 1 and 2. So those are the possible zeros. You don't need to break them all up and write them all out. That would take too long and waste of time. And then part B says, okay, now since you've listed all of those, I'm going to tell you that 4 and negative 2 are zeros. And knowing that, we need to find the other two. This is a 4th degree polynomial. And we're going to have 4 zeros. They're actually all real this time. So we're going to use that information, that 4 and negative 2 are zeros. So let's take 4 and let's do synthetic division with our polynomial up there, f of x. So we'll go 2, negative 7, negative 8, 14, and 8. Bring the 2 down. 2 times 4 is 8. Add 1, 4, negative 4, negative 16, negative 2, negative 8, and 0. If you don't get 0 there, you did something wrong. You need to start over. Okay, now what I just did was I took the factor x minus 4 and I divided it into a 4th degree polynomial, and I got a cubic. Now I can take that cubic and I can divide the other one, which is negative 1/2 was the other 0 given to me. So I'm going to bring down the 2. 2 times negative 1/2 is negative 1. And that gives me 0, 0, negative 4. Negative 1/2 times negative 4 is positive 2, and I get 0 again. You need to get 0 there for sure. So then what you end up with is a quadratic. And you have 2x squared minus 4 set that equal to 0 and solve. You can either factor or you can use, I'm just going to extract roots. So I'm going to add 4, divide by 2. I'm going to take the plus and minus square root of 2. So if the question said find all the zeros, we found all the possible ones in A. Now we're finding all of the actual ones. We have plus or minus rad 2, negative 1/2, and 4. So those are all the zeros. Up here it says find all the possible zeros, and you notice that rad 2 is not in there. This is just for rational zeros. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. Rational zeros. Okay. And then you can actually graph this polynomial now. So letter C, let's go ahead and graph it. And from our leading coefficient test, this is an even degree with a positive leading coefficient, so it's going to rise left and rise right. And we have our zeros here. We have rad 2, so let's go ahead, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have plus or minus rad 2, which is 1.4, 1 point something like that. So that's here. I'm doing a different color so you can see it a little better. Here and there. And then I have negative 1/2, which is here, and then positive 4. So my graph's going to go through, and like that. Okay, because they're all linear terms. There's no multiplicities, there's no doubles or anything like that. And that's the graph of it. All right, so try those on Thursday. When I come back, we will do a review, and we'll have a quiz later on in that period. It's a block period, so we'll spend the first time reviewing. But for your quiz, the quiz is going to be on 2.1, 2.3, and 2.4. There's going to be a calculator and a non-calculator section. The calculator section is going to be for things like that problem with the velocity. Okay, so S of t equals negative 1/2 gt squared plus v sub 0 t plus s sub 0. And then the velocity equation is, and these are given to you, would be negative gt plus v sub 0. So those are both going to be given to you, but you need to know how to use that and how to find, it's going to be like something's taking off from somewhere and it's going like this, and you have to find certain things, and we'll go over all that when I come back too. All right, have a great day.